Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Neil Aitchison. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the 32nd Annual Mayor's Dinner celebration. We have a full house of caring people here tonight. Absolute sellout. Some of you may have thought you were at a table of 8, but suddenly they had to become tables of 10 because of the overwhelming success in our ticket sales. So thank you so much. It's just kind of like an old family reunion every year now, seeing so many great faces, happy citizens of our community to make this event the signature dinner of the year. And now we're going to ask for absolute silence so you can hear what we have to offer. We have Margaret Nally, who will offer the blessing, and she's going to be followed by the Gataco Singers, who will offer a song of hope and thanksgiving. Now, Marg Nally was the co-host for the 25th Mayor's Dinner. She was part of the founding board of the Working Center, and she's a constant presence at St. John's Kitchen, where she offers spiritual support in these complex times. She hosts memorial services that mark the lives of people of our community. Last year, 35 members of the St. John's community died, and already this year we have lost 25 in the first quarter. The Gataco Singers, comprised of Patrick, Seth, Deborah, and Micah, they arrived in Canada on September 13, 2017. Their family from the Democratic Republic of Congo had been refugees in neighboring Burundi for some 15 years. Prior to their resettlement in Canada, they lived in one of the large refugee camps. It was here that Patrick led a choir of some 40 young people singing songs that encourage hope and express thanksgiving as an example of what they would share with us this evening. And we'll get that little treat before we enjoy our meal. Today, they're all students of Eastwood Collegiate, where their musical abilities have already been well recognized. Please welcome Marg and the Gataco Singers. You take that with you.
Welcome. We stand on holy ground, on land that has been cared for, cultivated, and home to the neutral Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe people from time beyond memory, a land rich in food, people, song, and story. A beautiful land along the Grand River, broken open to plant the three sisters of corn, beans, and squash. A land cherished and fruitful with space for all. We lament the sorrow that was caused for those wrenched from this land and commit to continue to work on reconciling our fractured relationship. This land is broken open again as our hearts, homes, and lives are shared with those new among us who bring memories of homeland abundance with cassava, red kidney beans, and sweet plantain, of homelands far away. We learn anew that there is room for all as we open wide the hinges of the heart and create room within for those already among us, craving the sustenance of belonging, and for those newly arrived in search of a new homecoming. The dish with one spoon treaty reminds us of what binds us together: to share the territory, protect the land, so that we can live in a spirit of peace, friendship, and respect. So tonight, this night of celebration, let us pause to acknowledge the rich abundance from the original source of land, of people, of food. The one who created beauty and belonging in our souls so that we can hear the sweet harmony of a new creation that is born among us when we open wide to peace and possibility. Tonight, this very special night of celebration, we pray in gratitude for all that is gift, for all that is broken and shared, for all those who offer generously help, healing, and hope, for all that binds us together in the tender mercy of the one to whom we all belong. As we celebrate, may it be so. Amen.
Kucho yavuze nzogera naho yambwiye kuko Imana atari umuntu ngwibeshe iyo ivuze biraba yategeka bigakomera nifite ijambo rya nyuma kuri nge nzogera kuco yavuze nzogera naho yambwiye kuko Imana atari umuntu ngwibeshe iyo ivuze biraba yategeka bigakomera nifite ijambo rya nyuma kuri nge isi yuzuye ibiteye ubwoba n'ibiduca intege umwijima utuma tutareba imbere iyo tujya isi yuzuye ibiteye ubwoba n'ibiduca intege umwijima utuma tutareba imbere iyo tujya nubwo bimeze bityo zi neza icyo Imana yavuzeho kuko ari nta jambo Imana ivuga maze ngo rihere nubwo bimeze bityo zi neza icyo Imana yavuzeho kuko ari nta jambo Imana ivuga maze ngo rihere nzogera kuco yavuze nzogera naho yambwiye kuko Imana atari umuntu ngwibeshe iyo ivuze biraba yategeka bigakomera nifite ijambo rya nyuma kuri nge nifite ijambo rya nyuma kuri nge nifite ijambo rya nyuma kuri nge
Thank you, Neil. And I know it's always a fun night when you're around, so it's going to be a great night. Your Worship, Mayor Verbanovic, Your Worship, Mayor Jaworski, Your Worship, Mayor McGarry, honored guests, Dr. George Berrigan and Evelyn Gurney, Dr. Chris and Michelle Steingart, Dr. Mike Stephenson and Margaret Brockett, and distinguished guests, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to share this 32nd annual event with all of you this evening. On behalf of the hundreds of BAL team members in the Kitchener-Waterloo area and from across the country, it is our privilege to renew our support for this event for another year tonight. And also to recognize the hard work and leadership that is represented in this room. At BAL, one of our fundamental beliefs is that the future of our country depends on building stronger, more dynamic communities today. Communities that welcome diversity, that nurture innovation, that provide ongoing opportunities,
enabling every citizen to realize his or her full potential. The larger Kitchener-Waterloo community has a long record of responsible growth. As for the Working Centre, well, it's an approach for the kind of grassroots, volunteer-driven initiative that provides the essential glue for a community. And it's been providing that essential support for 3 decades. That alone is incredible. It's even more impressive when you consider the range of programs the Centre offers, more than 30 ways of offering hands-on help, innovative tools, and ongoing opportunities for neighbors and friends. Congratulations to the Working Centre and its huge contribution to the quality of life in Kitchener-Waterloo. It is a privilege to be here to support this with all of you this evening. As always, Bell is eager to help your community grow, to put our tools to work, to better serve the municipalities, its businesses, and its residents. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing the stories of grassroots, person-centered healthcare for the speakers this evening. Thank you, everyone, and have a fabulous evening, and my best wishes to all of you.
Thank you, Nina. Beautiful. It says about 5 to 8, I should be calling Joe Mancini up here, Mancini, and we're close. What's a half an hour between friends? Joe. We have the founding half of Joe and Stephanie Mancini, and Joe is always ready to give his words of welcome and his remarks on where we're at this year with the Working Centre. I won't go into a long introduction because we're late. Joe Mancini, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Neil. Mayor Vervanbeck and Mayor Jarowski and Mayor McGarry and Neil, on behalf of the Working Centre, we'd like to welcome each of you to the 32nd Mayor's Dinner. We're grateful, the Working Centre is, for the success of the Mayor's Dinner and all the long-term relationships that really have supported and helped the Working Centre to grow in really amazing ways. Over 37 years, the Working Centre's response to poverty and unemployment has evolved into an integrated village of supports in downtown Kitchener. It is a web of services with over 30 projects, 500 volunteers who are community members involved in direct service. Owning and renovating 14 buildings of multiplex houses, the Working Centre's ecology of action generates creative exchanges, cultural development, and service to others. Wendell Berry describes a healthy community as one that respects the holiness embodied in creation, and it grows from the recognition that we belong to each other and we belong to our places. It is all about our search for common unity. Yet, every day at St. John's Kitchen, we face the realities of drug and drug overdoses. It is growing because of the dominant conception of society as one with winners and losers. Without hope, where do you turn when there is no work? When you are ignored by the health system? When you can't find housing? When you reject or are rejected by your own family? Addictions are what people do when they cannot make a difference in the world confronting them. Humans under stress take advantage of whatever tools their environment affords for reducing stress. But what we have is pervasive drug availability, and it's the reverse side of the decline of full-time laboring work. Drug distribution follows the logic of market society, where everything has a price, everything has a market, and everything is for sale. Now we have market saturation for highly addicted drugs like crystal meth and cocaine and opioids. And on top of that, we have less family connections, less affordable housing, and more precarious work. When deprived of family, work, housing, love, and belonging, people are easy prey for the drug culture. The work we're recognizing tonight is about restoring relationships, but it's also about the reality of despair and gridlock. There are few answers when it comes to these main questions of housing, work, family, and meaning. Where are the ideas of integral communities that create housing and work for those who are left out? Walk into St. John's Kitchen and you'll know exactly what I mean. There you can feel the lack of housing, the family breakdown, the availability of highly addictive drugs. Those defeats are worn on each person's back. At last year's Mayor's Dinner, I stated with intent that we need places of rest where self-awareness can build, places where one can process the meaning of family breakdown or episodes of trauma, places where people have spaces to think about their defeats and their successes, a place to construct an imagination for a hopeful future. People cannot succeed unless they are wrapped in a supportive community. This is what we had in mind when the Working Center purchased 115 Water as a potential safe consumption site. The addition of 8 transitional housing beds at this site is a pathway to housing, treatment, or a place of safety and rest. We are glad to announce we are ready to start the renovations. All the downtowns in the province of Ontario are facing the challenges of the growing complexity of homelessness. It falls from the availability of these kinds of the drugs that I was talking about. And locally, we are developing more of larger response. It's a cooperative response that we call the Inner City Health Alliance. The first members were the Working Center, Sanguen, Sanctuary, House of Friendship, Kitchener Downtown Community Health Centre, Ray of Hope, and just this week, the Centre for Family Medicine. Our hope for the Alliance is a responsive local village of health and social supports, serving the vulnerable and refugees. Our goal is to improve people's health through integrated health services. The Alliance approach is to walk alongside people, listening and learning while providing timely care that honors the whole person. We will be stronger together. This evening, we're celebrating grassroots healthcare that has evolved in our community, and we're inviting a wider conversation about this work. Thank you to Dr. Michael Stephenson and Margaret Brockett, Dr. Chris and Michelle Steingart for joining us tonight to share this message for the commitment that you've made to bring grassroots healthcare to our community. But also for us, it's a special thank you to Dr. George Berrigan and Evelyn, who 10 years ago set up shop at St. John's Kitchen and truly have helped to change the way primary care is provided to the most vulnerable. Tonight's a very special evening, and that's basically what I'm doing an introduction to. It's the story of grassroots healthcare. For our community to make a difference, for the numbers of drug overdoses and the realities of homelessness that people are facing, we have to do better. And we hope through the Alliance that we can do better.
Thank you, Joe. You know, Joe and Stephanie started this 30 plus years ago, and now you heard how many buildings are downtown dedicated to helping, housing, and caring for those people who need it. So that's it for the auctions and the heads and tails and the silent and live auction. Now I want to call on our hosts, our mayors, and they're the evening hosts. This started as a 1-mayor, became a 2-mayor, and now it is a 3-mayor event with Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge. So please welcome to the microphone Mayor Barry Verbanovic, Dave Jaworski, and Catherine McGarry, please.
Well, good evening, everyone. On behalf of our city councils and the citizens of Cambridge, Kitchener, and Waterloo, we welcome you to the 32nd Annual Mayor's Dinner. This year, we're recognizing 3 outstanding community healthcare organizations of St. John's Kitchen, the Sanctuary Refugee Health Centre, and Sanguen Health Centre. These organizations have all one important thing in common: a desire and a drive to tackle our community's major healthcare issues from the ground up with a focus on harm reduction and prevention. We are delighted to shine a spotlight on the amazing work that's being done by each of these healthcare providers, and we look forward to celebrating their success stories with everyone here supporting them. An event like this gives us the opportunity to celebrate our grassroots and our local healthcare success stories with all of the community leaders, like all of you gathered here tonight.
Behind every organization are the faces of those individuals who are at the core of their success. This is especially true when you're talking about each of these organizations as they deal with the particularly vulnerable in our society, and human connection and interaction is vital to successful healthcare in these situations. We are very pleased to recognize the individuals whose compassion turned into making a difference in our communities. Dr. George Berrigan, Evelyn Gurney, Dr. Chris and Michelle Steingart, Dr. Mike Stephenson, and Margaret Brockett. For their tremendous contributions to Waterloo Region. As healthcare professionals, these individuals saw needs in our community and took initiatives to tackle them, and we are honored to celebrate each of them today at our annual Mayor's Dinner.
Every year during our Mayor's Dinner, we typically give 10 facts about our guests of honor during our speech. This year is a little different, though, as we are celebrating 3 amazing organizations. So we'd like to talk about 3 facts about each. But please, if you get a chance to go to their websites to read more, each of their stories is unique, inspiring, and I promise you will not regret it. And you'll probably be able to make a donation there too. I think Murray Haas, I'm channeling him right now.
We will start with St. John's Clinic. For the last 10 years, Dr. George Berrigan and Evelyn Gurney have been the heart of St. John's Clinic, which provides health care to the people struggling with homelessness, mental health issues, or addiction in the Waterloo Region.
Dr. Berrigan is the family doctor for many who are experiencing homelessness in Waterloo Region. As a team, they provide care for more than 2,000 people in our community.
To me, it's over here. Okay. You know, Berrigan, that kind of sounds like your next election campaign slogan. Berrigan.
There you go.
There you go. Homelessness, healthcare is much more complex than people know. And at St. John's, they focus on the full picture of someone's life in order to ensure the best care for their patients.
Now moving on to Sanctuary Refugee Health Centre, which is a center that provides health care for refugees. It strives to offer free, patient-centered, and evidence-based care when providing health care options to refugees who are new to Waterloo Region.
At the start, the sanctuary would often have to pay out of pocket or find creative ways to get funding. Slowly, although the community began to see the amazing work they were doing and support rolled in. Within a few months, they were able to move to a place on King Street.
The Sanctuary Refugee Health Centre has 3,600 patients and has just recently expanded their clinic. We are a welcoming and diverse community, and this helps serve the newcomers here in our region.
Our final guest of honor is the Sanguen Health Centre. It all began in 2002 when Dr. Chris and Michelle Steingart moved from Calgary back to the Waterloo Region. They noticed that there was a large gap in the care of those suffering from hepatitis C in our community. Seeing the need for more specialized care for these patients, Dr. Steingart decided to leave his position at Grand River Hospital, and in 2007, they created the Sanguen Health Centre.
Sanguen has a mobile community health van. This allows them to travel throughout the region to provide primary care, clean needles, and even fresh socks for those who need them.
The Sanguen Health Centre also has a team that goes out and finds used needles to dispose of them safely. This is a great benefit for our community. Take us home, Catherine.
So we would like to express our gratitude to Dr. George Berrigan, Evelyn Gurney, Dr. Chris and Michelle Steingart, Dr. Mike Stephenson, and Margaret Brockett for being truly inspiring leaders in our communities. Thanks also to the sponsors and to the supporters of the Mayor's Dinner for all of your efforts in bringing together this year's festivities and for your work throughout the entire year. Volunteers, donors, and individuals really throughout all of our cities have actively contributed to our evening. We truly appreciate all of your exceptional work. Enjoy the evening, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I put my program there so nobody would steal my other notes. That's good. Now, I want to move to page 11. And our guest of honor tonight saw a need. So now is it time for them to come up and join me here? We have 6 chairs for you and 1 for me. Because when I ask you to speak, I'll sit down. That works out nice. Don't be shy. Come on in. That's it. Now, just for fun, you can guess who they are, or I can tell you. Anyway, you'll get to meet them all as I do the introduction. Please be seated. But while they're being seated, let's give them a round of applause right away. Okay. Our guests of honor tonight each saw a need in the community and they took initiative, tackling hepatitis C, refugee health, and primary care for those experiencing homelessness. This way of working doesn't simply offer a menu of services. It follows the person and offers the help that person needs when they want it to help them to be as well as they can be. Lots of our health services are divided into sectors. You go to one place to see your family doctor, another place for cancer care, another place to take your specimen in, and so on. You got to pay to park, you got to move here, you got to go there. Primary care, mental health, addictions, and community-based health care follows a person's journey and moves beyond these sectors. It involves creative problem-solving work which confronts each challenge as it emerges and teaches us a new way of offering health care, especially for people who are often left out of the traditional healthcare service. It looks at the whole person and tries to line up all the pieces that tend to get people stuck. Transitions are either non-existent or are supported to ensure that the relationship is maintained at all times. Now, our first guest is the Mobilized Health Services, and it's called Sanguen. And you heard they give snacks, they bring hygiene supplies, socks, harm reduction. And they ride around in a nice van around the region. I went over to see them the other day at their office on Yonge Street in Waterloo. It's incredible what they do. It's a beehive of activity. And they're busy loading the van, getting ready to go out for the night. They leave at 4:30, and they load it up, and they look after people with Hep C, STDs, pregnancies. And if you've seen pictures of it on the big screen, it's a big white van and there's writing all over it. It's really become a mobile memorial to people who have passed away. There's goosebumps involved. Most names on that van are those who've died. They have a buddy method. I met Johnny, one of their former clients who's now a helper. And he says, I'm an addict. And he said, nice people take drugs. And it's interesting to see how this works. Good old-fashioned love and kindness, reaching out to addicts instead of pushing them away. And there's a sign written on the van that says, love me till I'm me again. Last year, there was 30 deaths in the year. This year, there's been 25 already. 300 overdoses. And it was really an eye-opener. There's a lot of people in here tonight who are going to be made aware of things that we didn't know was going on in our community. And it's not true that it's increased crime. It's true that this is a health issue. It's a medical quality of life issue. And you have a bad bag of lettuce on the shelf in California, killed somebody, and they take lettuce off the shelves across the continent within days. 2 planes go down due to a computer glitch, and they shut down Boeing. Yet there's thousands of overdoses and countless deaths in our country, and we can't get a safe injection site. Sanguen and St. John's Clinic offer a combination of place-based clinics and outreach services. Sanctuary brings all the services to one place to support refugees. You saw some tonight singing. You'll hear more stories of people who came to this country not because they wanted to leave home, because they were forced out by terrorists, rebels, wars, persecution like you wouldn't believe some of the stories. And all 3 teams are multidisciplinary teams. Our guests of honor and the teams they work within return day after day to simply chip away at the major health challenges that people face. This compassionate work and reduction of harm and this grassroots approach to healthcare is what we will be celebrating tonight as best we possibly can. I went through all 3 of the locations this past week. I've been to St. John's Kitchen many times before, but this was my first visit to Sanguen and my first visit to Sanctuary, and it's unbelievable the happiness that goes on in these places where they take care of people and they don't turn them away. There's a lot of people in this world get turned away because they don't look or smell just quite like we do. It is absolutely important to see what goes on. And we're going to watch a video now just to see what gives you a sense of the places where this work takes place. And first of all, we're going to talk about Sanguen. I asked where that word came from. It has something to do with blood. It started out with Hep C, and it's become so much more than that. When I spoke with Chris Steingart and his incredibly busy, happy wife who sits there at the front desk. And they addressed the need for services in the community with Hep C. Started off as a small, one doc, one nurse. Where was I? Okay, they had the one doctor, they had one nurse and one receptionist, and it has grown to a team of 12 with peer and volunteer team members providing additional support. Sanguen is the province's first charitable hepatitis C service organization, but has grown to do so much more than just treat Hep C. It has changed to become more of a health-focused outreach organization that meets people where they are and walks their health journey alongside them. With a dedicated team of nurses, social support workers, outreach workers, and peer support workers, Sanguen works now to meet the needs of the marginalized population they serve. Their community health vans go out meeting people where they are, providing primary care, harm reduction support, and even fresh socks. Think about it at Christmas time. Socks and underwear make a great little gift to drop off. These incredible programs came and come not from a top-down approach, but how to solve the problem of the opioid crisis, but from the grassroots. They see the problem and do what they can to reduce harm on the ground where it benefits those who need it most. Their vision is a combination of compassionate medical care, those with Hep C, as well as the innovative programs they meet, many other important needs of their patients, including mental health, addiction, and housing support. Michelle, as clinical program coordinator at Sanguen Health, and her role is to ensure the smooth operation of the clinic. She's also the proud mom of 2 boys. Connor is in his second year of U of W in the honors co-op medicinal chemistry program, and Aaron, who is completing his final year of high school and planning on pursuing a degree in psychology this fall. Chris is the founder and medical doctor, director of Sanguen Health Centre. He's also the proud dad of those 2 boys, and he's an avid Maple Leafs fan and a cyclist. By the way, what's the score of tonight's game? Nothing? 2-0 for the other people? I don't want to talk about it anymore then. Okay, in preparing this interview, this evening, we interviewed a number of people involved in the work. Here's what some people have to say about Dr. Chris and Michelle. Chris is a doctor. He doesn't have to come out on the van, especially in cold weather, but he always has. I know people are always very excited to see a doctor come out on the street with us. Dr. Steingart saw the lack of care for people with Hep C and started Sanguen. He saw it making a difference, but the best way to do that was to go out and find people. So we go out where people hang out, wherever people who are at risk, street involved, or use drugs congregate. As for Michelle, she holds down the fort. She's the bright light, smiling face that greets you when you walk in at their offices on Yonge Street, which is worth a lot because many people are used to be turned away immediately. A lot of people are automatically turned away at other health centers. So many people in this community, our people, are just written off by those who should be in a position to help them. So we try to fill that gap. Chris and Michelle, they do that job. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Chris and Michelle Steingart.
Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight to support the amazing work that the Working Centre does in our community. They couldn't do it without all the support, and we appreciate you here tonight. I'm going to grab my cheat sheet because I thought I had this memorized, but I'm nervous. But here we go. So we are honored to be included in tonight's program. It's not something we were expecting. This was a surprise, and we are honored to be here and to share a bit of the story about what Sanguen Health Centre is, and what we're about. Neil gave a phenomenal introduction for us there, so you have a bit of a sense of who we are and what we do. But our job tonight is to give you a bit of an indication as to why. You'll be seeing some more in the video, a few other video clips coming up that highlight our community health van program, which is our crown jewel. We're very proud of it. And we're often asked why. Why on earth does your team go out in February when it is minus 30 degrees or minus 40 with the wind chill to distribute things like hot chocolate and harm reduction supplies and warm clothing? Why are you out on sweltering July nights when it's plus 30, plus 40 with the Humidex, handing out freezies, providing nursing care, and things like sunscreen and deodorant? Why? Because, sorry, every member of our team is dedicated to ensuring that every member of our community feels connected, feels supported, and is able to access health services in a non-judgmental way. Many of the folks that we serve are part of a largely invisible population. Our one outreach worker came to me with a story of a gentleman that had come to the van, and he had said to her that he had felt like a ghost. Those were his words, ghost. Because in the 2 weeks prior to coming to access the van for the first time, not a single person had looked at him with eye contact, had spoken to him, or had acknowledged his presence in any way. 2 weeks. And that total sense of isolation had him literally questioning his existence and his sanity. That is heartbreaking to think that someone could feel that way. So we go out into the community. We meet people where they are at and understand that folks have often not had very positive experiences with healthcare professionals. So they're reluctant to trust us, and they are reluctant to seek support. And that support can be very straightforward, as Neil said, a pair of socks, something to eat, a smile, conversation. We have no ulterior motive other than connection. And once we get that connection, it's awesome. Now, thank you. Now, that is not to say that once we've made that rudimentary connection with a person that they don't miss an appointment or 2 or 3 at the clinic. You know, that sense of mistrust and being judged is very hard to overcome for folks. But once that leap of faith is made and they do make it to the clinic, then we hear all sorts of wonderful things. Things like, my gosh, if I had known you folks were so nice, I would have come so long ago. When they find out we're married, we get comments like, wait, you are married to the doc and you work together and you get along? And my response to that, what was that? I missed that. What did you just? To which I usually respond, as long as he does what I tell him to do, we get along fine. Right, dear? There we go. Okay. We also often bring our golden retriever, Bailey, to the clinic, which has been unexpectedly an amazing thing, because the response there is, holy smokes, you guys have a dog here? Now, no, okay, that's not what people say, but my mom's in the audience, so I have to be on my best behavior. So no, the vernacular is maybe a little different, but people are shocked that we have a dog, and the first thing is, can I see her? And it has gotten to the point now where I actually have to look ahead on the next day's schedule of patients, because if I see certain names, I know I'd better bring her, because I'll get in heck if I don't. But that's okay, If the only reason they're coming is to see our dog and see the nurse and see the doc and the support worker, that's okay, because we've made that connection. Sorry. So we've made that connection. So even if the basis for them coming is seeing our dog, that's okay. They're there. Go ahead.
I think that's the first time Michelle's ever been told to speak louder. I'm glad you all are still hanging in here. You're getting to see three things happening at the same time tonight that you'll never see happen together again. Me in a suit, me not on my couch when the Leafs are playing, and me getting the last word in after Michelle. I do expect some applause because she got applause, so. I'd like to tell you about a fella that I know. About 15 years ago, I met him as a patient. I know what you're thinking. 15 years ago, wasn't I in high school? But no, thank you, but no. So I met this fella, and most people would describe him as a difficult patient. And I put that in quotes on my sheet. He had tough medical issues like untreated HIV and hepatitis C, among others. He wasn't always housed stably. He liked to drink alcohol and use other drugs. And he was pretty resistant to the whole medical thing. I can't really say that I liked him all that much for the first little while. He was frustrating. He needed to take my medication so that literally he would live, and he didn't want to. And that was difficult for me because I didn't understand that. But we gradually got to know each other, and we found out that we had actually a fair amount in common. We're both from small towns. We both liked playing sports when we were growing up, especially hockey. We're both little guys that needed to be quick and keep our heads up so we didn't get run over by the big goons. And now we're both unashamed Toronto Maple Leaf fans. But score? But this fellow was dealt a much more difficult hand than me. A lot of traumatic life experiences and difficult situations that I came to realize that I couldn't really appreciate given my good fortune. And I realized that he wasn't really difficult, this guy, but rather that I wasn't really good enough at looking past his exterior. And he taught me that I needed to be better at seeing him as a whole person and someone who wasn't really that much different than me. And this is something that I still every day need to try to get better at. Today, this fella, he's on treatment for his HIV. He's been cured of his hepatitis C after a couple of courses of treatment. And one of my favorite things to do is that when there's a Leafs game on, he and I text back and forth. And he pretends to appreciate my take on hockey. And he's one of the few people here or around that do. In fact, he's been giving me updates along the way tonight. And if given the chance, this fellow will likely tell you, and don't laugh at this, that I'm the best doctor in the world. In fact, all of you, except maybe my mom, probably would be surprised to hear that I hear that not infrequently. And as much as my ego would like to believe that that's true, I know that it's not. And in fact, I know there's a couple of docs here with us tonight that are much better candidates for that title than I am. But when I do hear something along those lines, I realize it's not so much about someone's experience with me, it's about their experience with Sanguen and the things that our team does for people that are in difficult situations and the efforts that we make to connect. And that's why this experience here tonight is so humbling for me. I mean, Michelle and I are up here representing Sanguen and sharing this stage with 4 outstanding healthcare workers doing amazing work for the most vulnerable people in our community. It's humbling because we're here honoring Joe and Stephanie and all the great work that the Working Center does, and we look to them and their long history of service and how lucky we are to work with and learn from them. But this is humbling for me mostly because these really bright lights are shining on us right now, and they should be on tables 8 and 9 over there. There's a group of people over there. It's not the whole team, but you're real people. You're doing tough work under difficult circumstances. You're passionate, you're compassionate, you're dedicated, and every day I draw inspiration from what you do to help people, knowing that too much of the time you're trying to wade through your own grief and loss because of some of the things that you have to go through as part of your work. And it's a real privilege for me to be part of that and to be able to spend my days with you. This is also humbling because of the people that we get to work with every day. Folks that are often pushed to the margins of our community, into the shadows. People who have taught me countless lessons on what it means to be a human being on this planet and just trying to survive as best as we can. People who have shared countless stories of courage, resiliency, caring, but also, unfortunately, of hardship and loss. I feel like in a small way I get to represent them up here today as well. If I'm to convey to you who we are as an organization, I guess I would want to highlight some of the things that Michelle's already said. And that's our connection to those who don't often feel connected. And that we try to create a sense of community and belonging to those who don't always feel welcome. We try to meet people where they are. And sometimes, because there's nothing else, we just try to be there for people. So thank you to that great team that's sitting over there. Thank you to Michelle. Thank you to our fellow honorees tonight and to Joe and Stephanie in the Working Center. And you know what? Thank you to all of you as well, because, admit it, you want to be watching the Leafs game. But you're here tonight. You're with us. You're showing that you give a damn too. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
There we go.
I think the reality is our target population of folks don't necessarily access services in like a traditional manner, and so being that we're like a Hep C agency, we could sit in an office and wait all day for people to show up to get tested, to get treated, and like it's not necessarily going to happen. Most of our people, Hep C and testing and things like that are not their number one priority. They're wondering where they're going to eat that day, where they're going to sleep, so many other things that are like just basic necessity.
For me, I need, when I know that I'm 3 sheets to the wind and I'm looking at one of my counselors or the doctor in the face and I'm obviously under the influence, to me, I feel different, but to them, they don't cast judgment on you at all whatsoever. It's always, in the amount of times that the counselor has came and been the only one, I've been flailing out by myself with no clothes, no shirt on, in the middle of the street for 5 hours and no one has done anything. And the counselor comes by and gives me some drink and water and props, just stands there with me, and I don't want to go inside for whatever crazy reason, and they help me to be able to just get the essentials to be able to continue on. It's not like they're going to be able to take you home with them and fix you fully, but they can give you the essentials to be able to get out of the situation you are in on the side of the street corner and be able to get back to safety somehow.
Sometimes it's just being able to kind of hop over those hurdles to get to the basic health care that they need and that they deserve.
Those people who have trauma, who have anxiety, who have come from war zone, who are sick, many type of clients we serve here. Most of them, they are sick or they have anxiety and worry and trauma problems, and we treat them in different ways.
Hell, like one of our stops is at a motel that my first interaction with the van was when I was living in that motel. And I'd come and, get some oatmeal and a granola bar, and that's what I'd eat that day.
Earlier today, someone, was involved in a physical fight, but their hand was a mess, so we still needed to look at their hand. And so we brought them into the clinic, and they were in the clinic for an hour and a half, and then I brought them to the hospital. But I think it had less to do with the action that may have happened in the bathroom and more about what that person's need was, because as much as there was an interaction in the bathroom, that person's story didn't start today. It didn't start in the bathroom. There was a lifetime of trauma that led up to that moment, and I think we're able to contextualize that and still provide care.
And by the way, that van goes to Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, Guelph, and now they're reaching out to Palmerston, as we like to say it. So they're doing amazing work, and I tell you, I was surprised to see Dr. Chris in a suit tonight. I had to take a double take. He wears his jeans and his sweatshirts and his jean jackets, and he's out there connecting like you wouldn't believe. It's a beautiful thing. Let's hear it for the people at Sanguen. Now, I'm going to introduce us to Sanctuary. Sanctuary, if you see this painting here, they started in the St. Mark's Lutheran Church, and they graduated to that house, wherever it is, I forget now. And now they're at the Kitchener Farmers Market in a beautiful facility upstairs there, where they've now expanded into a greater area, and they work with refugees. The first time I met Dr. Mike, he was a guest speaker at one of our Rotary meetings, and you could have heard a pin drop. Nobody in the room moved, nobody coughed, nobody nodded off, as is typical at a lot of Rotary meetings, because he was compelling and compassionate. And that was a story that needed to be told and needs to be told over and over again. And what a great place to visit. The enthusiasm, again, is overwhelming. And here we have a group of people. I don't know how many languages are spoken in that place. Perhaps they'll tell you, but the breakdown of people from all over the world who have chosen to come here to live as refugees to escape whatever it was they had to leave behind. And babies. Talk about babies, beautiful babies. And of course, being a grandfather, I'm an expert on babies. And there they are now. Almost half the sanctuary's 3,751 patients are under the age of 20. In 2018, yes, sure. In 2018, Sanctuary helped bring 114 new babies into the world. And already this year, they have 68 expectant mothers visiting the clinic. And this is a sign of hope to have a child. And it's even more a sign of hope as they settle into their new home and eager to have their first Canadian baby. It's very, very important. From Margaret, she said, much of the prenatal care is given by our physician assistant, Sarah. And to date, Sarah's here, she says, to date there are at least 5 babies of these new refugee Canadians whose babies named are Sarah. One of them was named Trudeau. It's really neat to hear how these little people are so happy to be a part of this country. And so far, we haven't had any Mikes. We got to work on that, Dr. Mike. But these people are our next workforce and our next community leaders. and it's amazing to watch the sparkle in their eye. And when you ask if you got any stories to tell, my goodness, they have stories to tell, the likes we have never even imagined. Sanctuary Refugee Health Clinic provides patient-centered, evidence-based health care, recognizing issues arising from persecution, trauma, migratory stress, and social integration. Bridging cultural and linguistic differences, Sanctuary offers orientation to and access to the Canadian health system. They have creatively gathered a hub of services so that these supports can be woven together around the person. As in all of these community-based healthcare models, trauma-informed awareness brings an important lens to the work. Since founding its services in a church in 2013, Sanctuary has moved to the house and now to the beautiful place at the Kitchener Market. They serve 3,800 refugee newcomer patients from around the world who speak 30 different first languages. Dr. Michael Stephenson is a family physician, director of Sanctuary, and he has nearly 10 years of focused practice with these people. First in Montreal with Santé Actuelle, that's en français, I speak all languages. What's that one I was going to say? He has all this first in Montreal and then in Toronto with Access Alliance, both of which are health centers for newcomers. And Dr. Mike moved to Waterloo Region in 2013. After exploring the needs for healthcare and refugees, but finding no opportunities with existing organizations, he decided to open his own center, a decision that he views in retrospect as the best and most naive professional decision he's ever made. For his work, he's been honored with the Kitchener Mayor's City Builder Award and the College of Physician and Surgeons' highest honor, the Council Award. Dr. Mike lives in Waterloo with his wife, Allison. She's a prof at the University of Waterloo, so she gets benefits. And his children, Catherine and Kieran. And you know, a lot of doctors devote their time to their practice, but they accumulate and acquire cottages and other things, boats. This guy devotes all his time and energy into this clinic. Unbelievable, the commitment. Margaret, who's with him there, Margaret says, over the course of my career, I've made at least 3 major, naive, but life-defining decisions. The first at age 17 was to become an occupational therapist, then a little-known and poorly paid healthcare professional. The second, 24 years later, was to cross the picket line during a labor dispute in which my patients were the unwitting pawns. And the third was to go to graduate school at age 50. Those older and wiser shook their heads at such seemingly foolish choices, but they supported me anyway, she says. Looking back over 60 years, I chose to see God's Spirit at work, leading me to put the lessons learned from these experiences together at Sanctuary Refugee Health Centre, surely the most fulfilling opportunity of all. And people have summed it up so succinctly about this couple. Dr. Mike is a visionary. He has such passion, it's hard not to be impacted by how he works. Our director, Mike Stephenson, taught us to be patient. He's always inspiring us. He's patient and he's kind. Margaret, they say, is amazing. She's active, energizing, and knows everything. And when you meet Dr. Mike, you feel like you are good. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Mike Stephenson and Margaret Brockett.
Mike has to stand behind me. He's too tall. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening. And you've already heard some of the amazing things that are going on in this community. Mike and I are both relative newcomers, and so it's a real privilege for us to have been honored in this way. It makes us really feel that we belong, even after only 10 years on my part, less than 10 years, and 6 or 7 for Mike. So thank you for welcoming us. And thank you for the welcome that this community has made to refugees. It bears repeating that the people who come here as refugees do not choose to come here. And if circumstances had been different, they would have preferred to stay at home. After all, who wants to come to this wintry, snowy place if you are used to living in Congo or Burundi or Syria or Somalia or Burma? All of these places, we see people coming to find a place for a new start here in Kitchener-Waterloo. And it bears repeating, too, that they come from experiences of deprivation, trauma, and more than that, betrayal, that most of us would find it very difficult to imagine. The welcome that we have given to our refugee newcomers here in this region is outstanding. But let me tell you, it's quickly overshadowed by the realization that this is not a land of milk and honey after all, and not everyone is friendly. It takes a long time to adapt to such a seemingly alien culture and to learn a language that frankly makes little sense. Sanctuary tries to offer a place where concerns can be voiced in a familiar language and where they will be heard, and that takes time. I don't know how many of you go to your doctors and can spend half an hour or even more talking to them without being given the eye to get out the door. But only when we pay attention and give time can our patients continue their journeys towards healing, finding hope, and ultimately well-being. None of us can promise total relief from the pain and suffering that these people have experienced. But we will work with our friends, our new friends, and their sponsors. And I'm one, and I know many people of you here who are also sponsors. And Sanctuary is a great place to help you out. But we will help to resolve the health challenges, old and new, as best we can, navigating the systems, filling out the forms. My good friend Tito down there, who's here tonight, when asked what he really remembered about this first year in Canada, shook his head and said, forms and more forms. Well, these are hard times for people, and they don't always understand either the systems that we have or what they're told to do. The things that seem really easy to us, like taking a prescription down to the pharmacy and knowing that there's a repeat on it, takes time to explain. And contrary to popular belief, these things do not happen quickly. They don't happen tidily, not overnight, and even within the first year. As our patients continue their journeys, we hope that they will learn to trust us. And it's only then that they will open up and share their stories of grief and fear and loss, those that they have lost to death and those that they have left behind in their home countries. These are their deepest fears and sadnesses, and we are privileged to share them with them and to do what we can to alleviate them. And as you've heard, it's not an unhappy place to be to work at Sanctuary. we are a very happy group, and our joy comes from many, many things. From witnessing signs of hope, as Neil has already alluded to the number of babies. There was a beautiful 4-day-old baby that I saw the other day coming in to see Sarah with her mom. And that's just one of many. And then just to see a troubled patient leave with a smile on their face, that brings great joy. But I think best of all, when a family will say that they did well to come to Waterloo Region. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this tremendous honor tonight. Many people ask me, why is a refugee health center needed? And when I think about the answer, I think about the patients that we have seen over the past 6 years. I think about a patient who I met even prior to opening, was one of the impetuses to opening the center, who told me that she had gone to the hospital, gone to the emergency room with chest pain, fearing the worst. And when she got to check in, she was turned away. Despite having health insurance, she was told, no, you can't come here. The triage nurse didn't understand why she was there, didn't understand her health coverage. Imagine for a second experiencing the fear of going through a medical event, going to the hospital, a place that you feel is safe, and being told you're not welcome here. I think of one of our very first patients, who I'll call Pierre, who in the middle of the night literally escaped out of a window to flee from government goons that were after him. He brought nothing with him. And he made his way to Canada and asked for asylum. And in fact, the citizenship judge, the refugee board judge who heard his case, said to him, I believe that you're a refugee, but when you fled out that bedroom window, you didn't bring any identification that proves who you are. And so Canada cannot grant you refugee status. And Pierre and I have worked together for 6 years trying to get him status in this country, which we were successful in helping him with. And now he's waiting for his family to arrive. 6 years he has not seen his children. Imagine that. Imagine leaving everything behind, going to a new country, and trying to start again, not knowing what tomorrow will bring, not knowing what's going to happen to your family. I think of another gentleman who I'll call Mohammed, who has his family here and has 4 wonderful children. And he came to see me this week, and he said, Doctor, I'm having trouble in English language class. I can't seem to progress in ESL. And I said to Mohammed, tell me more about this. And he said, do you think it has something to do with the fact that my government scooped me off the street, threw me in prison for 6 months, and repeatedly tortured me? He saw the worst of humanity. And he is here now hoping to heal and move on. But he needs to be listened to. He needs to be heard. He needs someone to walk with him through this difficult process of healing. Imagine putting yourself in his shoes and trying to move on from that. I don't think that I could. I don't think I could recover from some of what my patients have been through. We have almost 4,000 patients. I could tell you 4,000 or more stories. What I really want to tell you about, though, is our amazing staff. I'm lucky. I'm the boss. I get to pick the best people to work with us. And I couldn't do this work without people like Margaret and many of the staff who are here tonight. I could tell you about I would like to tell you about the folks, many of whom are here, who have given very generously to our expansion. We've nearly doubled the size of the clinic recently, so that we can take some of the 300 people off our wait list. And I'd like to give a very public thank you to those who have kindly contributed towards that expansion. I'd like to thank some of our partner agencies, like Reception House in Kitchener Downtown Community Health Centre, who are here tonight. The work that we do at Sanctuary is part of a community, is part of the community of Kitchener, of organizations working together hand in hand to look after the newest folks in our community. And community really is what this is all about. Our work is fundamentally about building a better Kitchener, a better Waterloo, a better Cambridge, a better region as a whole. I believe that when you invest in newcomers, when you remove the health and access barriers for them, when you create a single hub, a single place where people can come to and get the help that they need, they will thrive. Our patients have opened new businesses. Our patients have purchased houses. We have patients who are now in university and going into professional schools. And our region benefits from that. And I don't think there's anything better than that. So once again, Margaret and I are very honored to be recipients tonight with our esteemed colleagues. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.
The first time I went there, it was probably after I'd been in Kitchener about 2 months, maybe 3 months. I had, it was a whole bunch of things wrong with me. I was losing my mind, and I'm not sure who, but one of the workers for sure suggested that actually walked me to the clinic inside of the soup kitchen and sat me down and got me a meeting with Dr. Berrigan. And I seen Dr. Berrigan that day, I think, and I just started the relationship from there.
And I think part of the flexibility of our program is that we're able to work with folks who are sometimes not allowed in other spaces. So they may be banned from other community settings. And sometimes if we venture with them, that is allowed. They're allowed to utilize those spaces if they have those community supports with them.
So I think the fact that our consistency of showing up, no matter what the weather is, whether it's hot, whether it's cold, whether it's raining, we always show up. I think all of us kind of come from like a lens of no judgment, no stigma. So our harm reduction section of the van is huge. We basically kind of are just meeting people where they're at, and we're not telling anybody that they have to change in order to be provided with proper medical care. And I think a lot of our people, when they try to access other types of health care, that tends to happen. There's sort of like a judgment piece that comes with it. And everybody on our team, no matter what our role is, so like I'm an outreach worker, but we have our doctor, we have our nurses, they all do an element of outreach. So they're not sitting behind a desk waiting for people to come find them. They're going out and meeting people.
And you have to be open to anything happening and how to deal with it. If you're a really structured individual, this probably isn't the best place for you. But if you're willing to roll with the punches, you can help an awful lot of people. And it's a lot of fun. You can have a good time doing it.
Dr. Mike, he's very smart. I believe so. He talking now like 4 language. Sometimes when I talked with him about if I gonna say someone he has a hernia, he directly say fatik, like fatak in Arabic, fatik, yeah.
So one of the examples is translating healthcare, and whether it's translating in terms of language or whether it is translating in terms of helping them understand the differences between their healthcare that they're used to and healthcare in Canada. Both are very important in terms of helping them understand healthcare.
I think one of the really unique things about the way that we do our work is providing collaborative care to people. So we work as a multidisciplinary team. We have nurse practitioners. We have access to Dr. Berrigan and his wealth of knowledge. We have a psychiatric nurse on our team, social work support. We have a peer support worker, so somebody with lived experience. And we're really able to wrap around a person and lean on each other when we feel like we might not have all of the answers. We know that we've got a team that we can go to brainstorm and really wrap around a person to figure out how to move forward and how best to support them effectively.
There we go. On my visit to Sanctuary the other day, there was Dr. Mike. He missed lunch that day because it was busy. Walking around taking care of people in each of these examining rooms, and his support staff following and cleaning up and tidying and translating, and it's really, really remarkable to see that. Now, I know we've gone a little longer than normal, but now we're in the home stretch. It's hard to honor one of these without the other two, so that's why we have a triple header here tonight. St. John's Clinic started many years ago with the St. John's Kitchen, corner of Weber and Victoria Street, upstairs over Worth a Second Look, the second-hand shop. And it's interesting when that door is unlocked and up they come every day. It's full of people looking for a hot meal, eat in or take out. They have a choice, no questions. There's also laundry there, there's showers, there's washrooms, and then there's these St. John's Clinic that they put in there. And they're just there taking care of people who are maybe homeless. They can be an outreach philosophy that responds to complexity of all sorts of complex issues that we ordinarily wouldn't be familiar with. And supported housing and mental health, drug treatments, and so on. Dr. George Berrigan, born in Charlottetown, PEI, 1944, retired at 65 years of age, and for the last 10 years has donated his time. He's from Dalhousie Medical School. In 73, he came to Kitchener. In 82, he practiced medical with his wife, Dr. Janet Spate, until 2009. And he began work at St. John's at 2009 and through till this year. He just retired. He decided 10 years was not bad retirement, and he gave so much of his time and talent. He has 2 children, Irene and James, and 2 grandchildren, and 1 authoritarian cat. Evelyn began her nursing career on pediatric in New York City in the 1960s. She met her husband in Kitchener and remained here, working at both hospitals and freelancing at doctors' offices. She met Dr. Berrigan and Dr. Spate in 1990. They asked her to work for 4 days. 30 years later, here we are. People say Dr. Berrigan, when he meets with people, he'll sit down and ask questions about their substance abuse and where people are in a really non-judgmental way. He'll use language that people use on the street. You ought to hear them. I thought I knew a lot of good words. And to see that conversation without any judgment, and it's really a beautiful thing because it's something that doesn't happen anywhere else. Dr. Berrigan, others say, has a very calm demeanor. When you glance at him, the first thing that comes to mind may not be that he's a physician for street-involved folks. His demeanor and just being so calm regardless of what anyone can ever say to him. And he's heard every word imaginable. Nothing phases him as he continues to show caring compassion. Evelyn is a bright light of the clinic, they say. She's somebody who makes people feel cared about, seen, and recognized for just showing up and being who they are. You know, some of them say, I call her grandmother. Like I don't really see my grandparents. I feel that feeling is just older support. Someone who's been there, they've been through it, and they sees who I am and wants me to excel further. just to have that is worth going to the clinic every single day. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. George Berrigan and Evelyn Gurney.
Good evening. You're going to see Dakota again, I think, on the video. And I just wanted to tell you a really quick story about Dakota. He's here tonight. One day yay, Dakota, yeah. One day I walked in and found Dakota putting some salt in a cup. And I said, why are you putting salt in your coffee? And he said, it's tea. I said, oh, okay. And he said, I have an extra packet of salt. Can you put it in my chart and I'll use it again later? 2 weeks later, Nikki, our social worker, was told by Dakota that please go get the salt in my file. And she went in, got it, and he enjoyed his tea. That was a small thing. I don't have to do very much some days, but that's when I got promoted from Aunt Ev to Grandmama. So that was lovely. That was lovely. I arrived at St. John's. My task was to set up a clinic to provide support for primary care. I had strong connections already in the community with pharmacies, consultants' offices, and hospitals, but my limited knowledge of mental health and addictions did cause me some concern. I did, however, have George. That was a reassuring thing. Our well-oiled professional clinic never did come to pass. Yeah, you heard that, Tom, all right. We instead have a waiting room that, to the untrained eye, looks really chaotic. Leslie and I, who's the office manager way down at the end, she and I, yay, Leslie. She and I thrive on the energy provided in that room. Amid the chaos, we often hear small moments that reassure us that our young guys are so human, so needy. There was a moment for me to take a picture of him when he first got his dentures. He wanted to have a decent picture at the memorial service for him. Another day, one of the patients I overheard speaking to Nikki, our social worker, and said that he was horrified when he realized that he was somebody's job. Both of these men were in their 30s. Not many people in their 30s think about that or have to think about that. They don't want us to fix them. Mostly they just want us to accept them, and that we have found over and over again. Someone once said to me, there are times you don't want to talk about rehab, you don't want to talk about your wounds, you want to talk about a ball game. It's a good thing to remember. Dr. Berrigan and I have been so grateful to encounter such an amazing group of collaborators in our clinic. Doctors, nurses, social workers, peers, and now our new nurse practitioners. The foundation of this work is the outreach office, and we would have accomplished nothing without them. They were the light for us when we came, that taught us the language, and we just learned more than we ever imagined we could at this age, at this advanced age. I want to thank you for this honor tonight, and I want to leave you with just one thought. Our young guys and our young women are cold, and they're hungry, they're wet, they're lonely, they struggle every single day, and they're dying. And this is Canada. It's hard to believe. Let me now have Dr. Berrigan speak his mind. He's the brains and the heart of our little organization. George.
Thank you, everyone, and I just want to thank Joe and Stephanie for putting this amazing evening together. Before I start my talk, I'd like to acknowledge the staff at the St. John Kitchen, the outreach workers, the nurses, the nurse practitioners, and all the volunteers. Without that good work that they do, our outreach program would not be successful at all. The whole basis of the St. John Clinic is it is outreach medicine. So we were asked to tell you why we decided to work at St. John Kitchen back in 2009. The honest answer is that we saw back then there clearly was such a drastic need to improve medical care for the homeless in our city that we felt we should at least make the effort to try to do something in spite of our total lack of experience in this field. We discovered that the Working Center in St. John Kitchen had already created a functional venue with a staff of nurses, a social worker, and a team of 9 outreach workers. We had no bureaucratically designed program or procedural guidelines to work under, and that was important. In effect, what we did was use the approach of the famous black professional tennis player, Arthur Ashe, who tackled his problems using the SUD method. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. That was our modus operandi. Our first barrier was gaining trust. This took a lot of listening, attention, being adaptable, open-minded, and especially non-judgmental. We worked hard at keeping our promises. We realized that our care had to be backed by consistency, respect, and kindness. We accepted that even though we couldn't solve many of their complex addiction, mental health, and medical problems, we could work away at lessening the harm, at least enough to keep them alive. At St. John Kitchen, survival is our most immediate concern. The rest of the work is mostly finding ways to progressively lessen their suffering one-on-one, one day at a time. I'd like to tell you about one of the over 2,000 patients I've encountered over the last 10 years. I'll call this patient Ray, though that's not his real name. Ray is 66 years old and has been a chronic alcoholic for most of his adult life. Early last summer, he lost his housing because he failed to pay his rent. He lived on the streets all summer and into mid-October, mostly living under an overpass. 1 year previous to this, he suffered a small stroke that left him with a weak arm and hand. Worse still, he was beginning to show signs of dementia, with significant memory loss and confusion. He was frequently picked up by the police wandering aimlessly around the city. One of our staff nurses was assigned to his case. She quickly went to work, mostly trying to get an urgent placement in safe housing. After a couple of weeks of many phone calls and numerous forms being completed, he had a room in a local senior residence. When the nurse brought him to his new place in late October, he walked around his nice, clean room with a big smile on his face, and he sat on his nice, comfortable bed. He looked all around the room, and then he did something very telling. He began crying so hard he shook the bed. This lasted for many minutes. This sudden release of pent-up tension and stress indicates to me just how extremely difficult living on the street really is. Ray couldn't solve his problems by himself, but we could make the difference by reaching out and working together with others to get him into safety. Happily, Ray is now permanently housed and he has his alcohol abuse under control. Sadly, too few of our cases have the same outcome as Ray. While working with the homeless, you start to appreciate that the most common factor in their background is a traumatic childhood of abuse and neglect During their childhood development, they often lacked a reliable, stable adult to love them and provide them with the basic needs of acceptance, belonging, and caring. A, B, C. This deprivation consistently has disastrous lifelong consequences for their mental health and predisposes them to addictions. Moreover, they continually have to contend with marginalization and stigma their mental health addictions bring them. We at St. John Kitchen see their broken lives as a consequence of their circumstances rather than of their character. Make no mistake, marginalized people are marginalized by people. The homeless don't self-marginalize. They don't choose poverty. Marginalization requires marginalizers who actually have their own vulnerabilities, one being their tunnel vision, preventing them from seeing the whole picture. The homeless are no less human than the rest of us. They have the same hopes, worries, and needs as any other segment of society. Their personalities and talents vary just as much as any other social class. Prolonged stress harms them like it harms us. Their very survival depends on their human rights being treated absolutely equal to everyone else. Of all the many lessons I've learned at working at the St. John Kitchen, I'd like to leave you with these three. First, one of the great rewards of working with the homeless is acquiring all the wonderful friends you work with and work for. We work not just for the love of it, but for the love that's in it. If we give the marginalized attention, caring, and love when they desperately need it, we will get it back eventually, not tit for tat, but exponentially. Second, those who work for the poor are frequently amazed by the depth of character and personal strength of spirit many homeless people have. I believe this spirit is a product of the intensity and duration of their own personal suffering. Resilience isn't just a gift. Resilience is a tough, hard-earned skill. Lesson 3. The homeless population need more than sufficient funds to survive. They also need to keep their hope alive. The good example and humane behavior of the St. John Kitchen staff helps the homeless stay hopeful. The staff and volunteers at St. John Kitchen share a special gift that doesn't cost any money. Indeed, it's worth far more than money. It is more essential and accessible than cleverness, creativity, or courage. Yeah, it's the basic human gift of compassion. Compassion is at the heart and core of every healthy, functioning family and every proficient, healthy community. Compassion is also at the heart and core of all that is good, effective, and meaningful at the St. John Kitchen. If we're to solve our marginalization problem, we need to stop focusing solely on the homeless and also deal with what causes our society to marginalize. St. John Kitchen is the living proof that the primary answer to poverty is not just money, but sharing more of our compassion and our humanity. Thank you.
But at the end of the day, I am my best self because of my colleagues, I think, and just seeing the part everyone plays. And, you know, a lot of us are learning other languages on this side because, you know, our we have such great colleagues. I'm learning Turkish words, I'm learning Somali words. And so that, I think, keeps me going as well at the end of the day, part of like that humanitarian spirit. And I just want everyone to know that Sanctuary is what it is because of the people that work here.
So a lot of the other services that provide similar things are open during the day and not at night. So that's kind of why we go out during the evening, especially in terms of like the harm reduction stuff. Like there are a lot of other agencies that provide those things, but it's during daytime hours. And yeah, at nighttime, a lot of people are accessing like some of the free meal programs. So we find a lot of people that way. It's funny too, like you get to know people so well because you see them every week, right? Like I see some people on VAM more than I see like friends in my personal life or some family members even. So it's kind of cool. Like I get excited to go out on nights because it means I get to see a lot of people that I really like to see and find out what's going on in their life. And
you know, I'm not in a position to send a bunch of money, and even if I was, I think I'd rather still be at the back of the van handing out tools for people to live safer lives, because that's what I understand. That's what gave me sort of the first sort of steps towards a safer, more balanced, more humane life.
I think that we are so fortunate and so lucky to be able to be a part of people's journeys and people's experiences and really just to show up and be there and not necessarily know what to expect and not necessarily have the answer or know how to fix it, but to just be there with people. And I think we get to see so much vulnerability and so much resilience, and to be able to see that and work with that every day. And I'm just so grateful that people are willing to share their stories with me and letting me walk beside them on their journeys. I know for myself it's very difficult to accept help and to ask for help when I need it and to be vulnerable. So for folks to let us be a part of that journey is really just such a beautiful thing.
I think one of the things that I'm grateful for about both SOS and the clinic are just that there's nothing that's too big for the clinic. I think the clinic is able to see an individual and not lose hope of that individual, and to stay with that individual kind of regardless of what is going on in their life, and to understand that if this is what it is, then that is totally fine. We're there on that journey, and if the journey wants to change and the person wants to change, then we're there for that too. And we can be whatever that person needs us to be in any kind of moment.
Believe me, Sanctuary is not only a better atmosphere, even give you hope. When someone lose all the hopes, we tell them, don't lose your hope. Still, you are here. We will help you as much as we can.
These 6 people and the organizations they represent are Waterloo Region's Mother Teresa, if you will. They do such remarkable, beautiful, loving, caring work. The simplicity and the generosity implicit in this grassroots, from the bottom up approach is a model for effective health care. And they saw a need, they took the initiatives, they helped those most in need, and they serve individuals experiencing all these other things, addiction. They guide refugees through a system that's with its complexities in a new and unfamiliar country, and their good work makes our community a better, kinder, and healthier place, and one of the finest places in our country in which to live. We're going to give Dakota the last word.
I'd like anyone that was in my shoes or been through my shoes or going through my shoes or has a family member in my shoes to know that there is people out there that can pull you through it. There is people that if you think your family member, that your loved one is totally gone and that they're not able to come back to where they once were, I'm living proof that you can go from the very end stages of even humanity, like you're almost not a person anymore, then to go back to, you know, sitting in front of you with maybe a little bit of anxiety, but still the ability to know that, you know, this is the right thing to do and to get it done.